Hello, welcome to the Talking About Money podcast, which is exactly what it sounds like. This is sponsored by Oakford Financial Coaching, or in other words, just me, Stephen Betcher. And today I am here with my dad. So I'm going to give a quick intro. My dad is my hero. He is my role model. He's, aside from my wife, he's my best friend, my confidant, my mentor, and he was also the best man at my wedding. So really love my dad. Don't want to gas you up too much. My dad is on the wrong side of the LeBron versus Jordan debate. You can tell by his age and by his lack of hair that he has the out of date opinion on the matter. And to make things even worse, despite living in the Philadelphia region, he's a Dallas Cowboys fan. I gotta keep you humble, Dad. Gotta knock you down a peg. Sorry, can't let you get too much. But I'm really grateful to have you on the show, Dad. Thanks for being here. So Dad, the first question that I have for you is not. I know what money was like for us and for me growing up. I don't know what money was like for you growing up. So I know your grandparents lived through the Depression. Am I correct?
Right.
And so that obviously would have had an effect on your dad, which would have had an effect on you. So I guess can you just talk a little bit about what money was like in your childhood?
Sure. Money was very tight. My dad worked really hard. He worked in retail, so the pay wasn't great for him. And then they had a commitment to send us to a Christian school, so three of us went there, which was expensive. So my mom actually had to go back to work. She worked as a nurse at night, so she worked 11 to 7 shift, 3 nights a week. So it didn't really disrupt our family. There was really evidence of her sacrifice for the family. But I would say money was tight, and my dad was definitely in the cheap side.
Mhm.
So we didn't spend money. Um, we drove out west once. I think we shared a cup of lemonade after driving through the desert. So money was tight.
That was the splurge, was getting a cup of lemonade.
We did not eat
Yeah.
out. Our vacations were at a family cabin, so we didn't pay for vacations. So again, we had one trip to Niagara Falls, one trip out west, but we just literally didn't spend money.
Yeah, so very
Yeah.
tight.
Yeah.
Did your dad teach you about budgeting growing up, or how to manage money?
No, he didn't teach that. He taught us to give. So we didn't really get allowance either. So there's things we didn't get, and I was aware that we were poorer than other people. They would get twin bikes or Raleigh gloves. I'd have a Sears bike, a Sears glove, Sears sports equipment. So I could tell we were different in that way. So he taught us to give. There was money put out every Sunday on the top of the TV, and that was the money we got to give to the church. So
Okay.
that's what we did.
Yeah, so generosity was still a value,
Yeah.
even without the
Right.
abundance behind it. Was money something that people talked about a lot? Like, so you were aware that you may have been poorer than other people. Did you necessarily know what other people's salaries were?
Didn't know that. I just knew where we lived versus the Christian school I went to was, in a mainline area of Pennsylvania. So wealthier families. And I knew we weren't that. So our house was smaller. Our cars were different. My clothes were different. So I was aware that we made less and that I had less.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
So Dad, when you graduated college, what was your student debt situation and how did you manage it?
Well, I didn't have a debt situation, so
Great.
that's how I managed it.
Great.
Yeah, my wife, when we got married, actually my sophomore year in college, so she put me through the last 2 years. She worked for the college, which then allowed me to get my tuition for free.
Okay.
So
you had to work.
she was an employee of the college, and that really helped. And my dad, with all the one thing my dad did, we didn't have a lot, but he saved, and he was committed to his kids very much so. So he paid the first 2 years, and that's money that I had earned through summer jobs, which I had started earlier.
Yeah.
That money and what my dad gave got me through college, and then with mom working,
That's great.
we came out without that, which is a massive blessing.
Oh, for sure. Plus, I think probably back in that day, it was a little more affordable compared to what they're charging now.
Yep.
I mean, for us in my situation, I have about 3.5 years left of on my student payment plan, and I would be more aggressive paying it off. Except my interest rate it's an average of like 3.5%.
Right.
It's such a low interest rate,
Yeah.
it's such a low monthly payment that it's not my priority.
No, you can probably invest at a higher rate.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly. So it doesn't make a ton of sense to put money towards that when interest is so low. Um, yeah, so I mean, and something that I love. So you raised me and my siblings all with the idea of like, guys, a degree is going to be a good degree regardless of where you get it from. So definitely go to a good school, but you don't have to go halfway across the country, live somewhere, and you gave us that.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, I think parents, in well-meaning, they buy experience.
Yeah,
So the sending away and going away, and yet 20 years later, I don't know that you always reflect that it was worth the debt.
right,
It seems very important in the moment, but I think it's good financial planning is always looking 10, 20 years out.
right.
And that experience of going away to college doesn't always bear the same importance. Not saying the experience isn't worthwhile, but it doesn't always have the same benefit
Yeah,
that you
yeah.
might think.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think even the way you and mom did schooling for me and for everyone else in high school, we were taking some community college classes as dual credit. So when I took Spanish in high school, it was at a community college, so it counted as both my college credit and my high school credit. And that way, I mean, I entered college. I entered freshman year with 27 credits, which is basically a year.
Right.
So that was 1 year of tuition I didn't have to pay. And then I don't know, you obviously have been above and beyond generous for me and my siblings. But as far as with college, we've more paid our own way.
Right.
Because I know we didn't. I mean, we'll talk later, but we didn't have a lot of money.
Right.
Growing up.
Right.
So it wasn't there necessarily for us. Not that. I mean, I'm not complaining.
Right.
I obviously love our upbringing, love everything we did, and feel very positively about how you raised us, but we didn't we had to pay our own way through college and handle that on our own. But I actually think the lessons that taught us about responsibility and kind of got us thinking, we weren't just in college on daddy's dollar, we were paying our own way, which was good for us. So if your parents can pay like you did, that was great and that was helpful. And I think you already had a lot of lessons of responsibility that you understood. So I don't think, even though your dad was helping and then later mom was helping, it doesn't sound like you were there on daddy's dollar, just wasting dad's money.
The value of money was always, I think that was ingrained.
Yeah.
Because money wasn't easy to come by. And because we didn't do special things, the value of money was ingrained in me.
Yeah.
And I think because you guys had to buy your own car, I paid the first year of insurance, but you bought your own cars.
Yeah.
You paid your own way through college. I think it taught the value of money.
Right.
And we had a very simple thing, right? It was save 50%. It was save, spend, give. They were just the broad categories.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, buying our own car, working our way through college gave us a sense of ownership and responsibility that I think helped me and my siblings all very much.
Right.
And honestly, I think even knowing, I mean, for me, it was a little bit different because the means was starting to get there.
Yes.
But for my siblings, the means wasn't there.
Right.
So it even gave them this extra sense of like, it's not like dad's holding out on us. It's, no, we have to chip in.
Right.
Which was, I think, strong. I mean, I feel very positively about my siblings.
And all the siblings would say, because they know friends that had much more.
Yeah.
And I think it taught them the value of money, and they all did very well because they learned to budget very early.
Yeah. So you graduated college, and for you explained to me that the first 15 years of marriage was that only the first 15 years of marriage was marked by pretty intense financial stress, because initially you were a Christian school teacher, and then mom wasn't working; she was with the kids full time.
Right.
And you became a pastor, and I mean, contrary to what maybe most people think, pastors don't make tons and tons of money. I mean, there may be some at the mega churches, and that's its whole other thing, and obviously,
right,
not necessarily what we agree with. So having a relatively small income and needing to raise multiple children. So just for any viewers, I'm the youngest of 5, and there's 8 years between me and my closest sibling, and then the 4 other siblings. What's the
probably over 10 years.
Over 10 years. So it was 4 kids under 10.
Oh yeah, no, 4 kids. Yeah, definitely 4 kids under 7, I think.
4 kids under 7.
Yeah, I think so.
I lose
Yeah,
track of my siblings'
yeah,
birthdays.
yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, not sorry. Too many of you. So you didn't make a lot of money coming out. Thank goodness you didn't have debt, but it wasn't like you were coming out for this awesome salary. You needed to raise multiple children, and it was a value for you and mom that she stay at home with the children
Right.
and raise them. So, how did you prioritize what to spend money on?
Well, it was easy. Food,
Mm-hmm.
and rent. So it was, it was the basic expenses. So we would actually start with giving. So we sort of we wanted to tithe to the church first,
Mm-hmm.
and then it was just the bills,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how it was just the priority of the bills, and it was hard. It was 15 years of really hard. Public school teachers don't make a ton of money. Christian school teachers can make half of what public school teachers make.
Yeah.
So it's not a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I really did have a commitment for mom being home. So we lived simply.
Mm-hmm.
Um, our treat of the month would have been Little Caesars pizza.
Yeah,
Little
once a
pizzas,
month. Yeah.
it's once a month. Fortunately, vacations were still paid for by my family.
Yeah.
So when my mom would rent places, so we went places for free. So there, I saw God provide.
Yeah, you went places for free, but you weren't going to Italy for free.
No,
It was still
going to a cabin on a lake in the Poconos.
yeah, which is like about an hour away. So
Yeah.
that's great,
Yeah,
but
no,
it wasn't a luxury vacation.
No, we
Yeah.
weren't flying somewhere. We weren't doing cruises. Not those are great things. We
Yeah.
weren't able to do those things. We had to find still.
Yeah.
We were cooking all of our meals through all vacation.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot less eating out. I'm sure at the grocery store there's coupon shopping,
Very much so.
and you're
Yeah.
buying the deals, and you're not exactly bringing home steak.
No.
You're bringing
Yeah.
home the
Yeah.
ramen or whatever it
Yeah.
is, the
Yeah.
cheap food.
Yeah.
I think what we loved growing up, I think we understood that we had the idea that maybe we were poor.
Mhm.
I don't think any of us ever felt poor because we felt, number one, we felt very loved. We had great quality time with our mom because she was able to raise us and be with us. And we just enjoyed our life. Like, going outside is free. Playing in the woods is free. Playing, basketball in the cul-de-sac, or playing baseball in the backyard, or walking down, to the playground. All those things are free.
Right.
And so enjoying, like, I had plenty of fun
Mm-hmm.
without things that needed to spend money.
Yeah.
Now again, we had friends who lived in mansions, so I'd go over there and be like, oh, they have a basketball court in their basement. Like, there's definitely that. I'm like, oh, we don't have that. But yeah, I think for us, because you raised, like, you definitely prioritize the character of how you're going to raise your family. We understood the idea of we can't afford nice things, but we didn't feel like we were missing much. I didn't feel we were lacking.
Yeah, I think a lot of that was just the generous heart of your mom. She was a joyful person, and even people who have money don't always have joy, but joy makes you feel rich.
Right.
And so there was a love in the home, there was a joy, there was fun, and so I think in the things that are important, the relationships, we were rich that way. And I think people enjoyed. There was a generous spirit in the home, even though there was financial limitations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know. I mean, you've explained it to me a couple of times. The financial limitations. It wasn't just limitations. It was an active stress.
Right.
Like, it was hard. It wasn't just like, oh, it's tight. It was, okay, what bill are we paying this month?
Right.
Like, what bill are we going to be behind on?
Right.
And so my next question: what was the scariest financial situation that you faced, and how did you survive it?
Yeah, it wasn't a crisis. It was more the chronic, and I think chronic conditions are harder sometimes than crisis. Crisis, you rally, it's over. Chronic just wears you down.
It's day after day.
Day after day. And it was sort of, I can't pay this bill this month, so how do I push it? And at that point we were getting credit cards, but we were going from, here's a 0 interest 6 month credit card, and then I get another 0 interest 6 month credit card. So so that was just an ongoing stress. I think when we finally got a home, I think the first home I qualified by mortgage, was a $28,000 house. So even back in my day, that wasn't a good house. I mean, you walked in those houses and I think the first time we walked in the house we qualified to buy, your mom cried.
Yeah, she cried looking at that house.
Just like, is this going to be our house? Not a great house, not in good shape, and not in a great area.
Yeah.
So it was like, wow. And again, that was a miracle story. God provided for us, but we still bought our first house for $45,000.
Yeah.
And that's a miracle story how we got that house. So it was just always tight. I think probably the crisis was when we moved to plant our church in New Jersey. Unlike today, where you list the house and you get 10% more, we had to lower the price of our house 20%.
Yeah, you had to knock down your price. Yeah,
significantly to move, and I didn't. That was stressful.
Yeah.
And then there was just small things can be stressful. A car repair could be stressful.
Yeah.
And well, we're not going to do this. We're going to do that.
Yeah, I remember on one occasion our dryer broke, and thankfully we were close with our neighbors and had great relationship with our neighbors. I remember Mom was drying clothes at the neighbor's house for a while until we figured out what we were going to do.
Right.
You couldn't just go out and buy a new drying machine the next day.
No, and there was no normal expense that other families might have. And people talk about an emergency budget. We had no emergency budget.
There was no emergency
People
budget.
talk about savings. We had no savings.
Yeah.
At that point, because everything went just to live.
Yeah.
So our margin for error was very small.
Yeah,
very small.
I guess that's that strain and that stress you're talking about, where like it's not there's an immediate crisis, it's living almost like an existential dread of like we can't afford a disaster. We can't have that. So you kind of live in this like heightened sense of like, oh man, I really hope that we're okay. I really hope there's no quick you need to come up with $5,000 or else you're beat. So yeah, I mean that makes sense. Just that daily, we were poor yesterday, we're poor today, we'll be poor tomorrow. That definitely over time is tough.
And what I taught the clientele where I taught was in a Christian school was they came from a wealthier area. So sometimes you realize those kids drove in with a car that I could never afford. They wore clothes that would represent my week's salary.
Right.
And but it was those were not bad things.
Yeah.
They were not bad things.
Well, you definitely learn a lot.
You learn a lot.
So it kind of ties into the next question. So you're a pastor now, and you've been a pastor for a long time. That was immediately what you jumped into after your teaching career. As a pastor, you have counseled both rich and poor people. And what are some insights you have on how wealth affects people's psychology and even just the problems that they face? As human beings, we always have problems and dilemmas. Just because you're rich or just because you're poor doesn't mean, So I guess just in meeting and intimately knowing people who are both wealthy and both poor, that's my question. Is how does the wealth impacts? Yeah,
I think for poor people, I think they live with what they can't afford, and sometimes what they want, and thinking that to have the other side, if you get that, it'll change everything.
Yeah, if I just get this, everything will be different.
Everything will be different. And probably one of the things that helped us when we were poor and I was teaching in the Christian school, and this is how we made it. Once a month, we would actually go and house sit for a family. So that means for a week, they paid us to come. We didn't have to pay our utilities. They provided the food and a small amount of money. And we would also watch their kids, which was strange when you think about it.
Yeah, it's definitely a little odd.
You invited a family in that you had an hour meeting with, and then you gave them your kids for a week.
That's definitely a different time.
Very different time.
Yeah.
But that's how we made it. But at one point, I remember being in a house that was at the top of Valley Forge Mountain with a pharmaceutical executive.
Yeah.
His wife or his daughter bought a horse, and he didn't know it. That's how much money they had. Every bedroom had a TV. And for that week, he let me drive his car, which was a Mercedes.
Yeah.
I had a car that really you wouldn't call a car.
Yeah.
I mean, it had neighbor siding on it. It had lawnmower parts holding up the floor. It was not a car.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, this is what a car is.
Yeah.
But at the end of that week, I also saw money didn't buy happiness. Like I went to one of his daughter's swim meets, and her dad had never even been to one.
Yeah.
And here I am just as a babysitter going to show interest.
Right.
And I think I walked out of that experience wanting more, but realizing it had more.
Yeah.
And it's not defined by possession. So I think poverty you can say defining possessions will actually help me.
Yeah.
And I'm not minimizing, again, the pressure of.
Yeah. You know the pressure. You've lived the pressure.
And I think for wealth people, it can be, I think there's other things. It can be hard to be humble. Can be. Doesn't have to be, but it can be. It can be hard not to be self-reliant because you have all the means you need. We prayed a lot, and we saw God do miracles to provide for us, and that's worth a lot. And it's worth more than gold. So I think if you have wealth, you could be self-sufficient. You could be distracted. Wealth can be consuming. I think they've done studies, and I don't know how accurate they are. Some of these things get anecdotal, but like people who have won lotteries and then you look at them years later,
and
there's often tragedy.
Yeah.
And you can look at people that have great wealth.
Yeah.
They can have
and there's tragic lives. Yeah.
and very impoverished lives relationally.
Yeah.
Meaning.
Yeah.
It's sort of like that stuff's indulging.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem to deliver what it promises.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. I think I'm sure you've not heard this song, but Kanye West has a song where he says having money isn't everything, but not having it is. It's kind of highlighting like when you don't have money, you live under constant pressure and strain, kind of like what you were talking about. Like there's just this driving sense of like, oh man, how am I going to keep the lights on? But you also have to understand having money isn't everything. It does make the problems go away. And ultimately, I think you hit the nail on the head. Character is more valuable than money any day of the week. Character is your true value.
Yeah, and Kim's parents, her dad.
That's my mom. My mom's parents.
Yes. Yeah, my mom, my wife's parents. Her dad was a Harvard MBA engineer. He was in the fast track to go to the corporate headquarters in Detroit. So he was a up and comer.
Yeah.
And very successful. And they made a decision when mom was in 8th grade to not move, to stay in where they were in a Christian school, which is where I met your mother, to not move. And it sort of killed his career. Like there wasn't a happy ending financially at the end of that. It sort of just killed his career. He didn't take his job move. But then he's looked at, and at times he says, boy, I just haven't done much. Well, he's been married to the same woman for 68 years.
Yeah.
3 daughters that love him, son-in-laws that love him, grandchildren that love him, great-grandchildren that love him.
Yeah.
And he looks at his classmates, and a lot of times it's suicide, multiple divorces. There's just
a lot of sadness. The money may be there.
Yeah. And I thought, Dad, you never became the CFO, CEO. You never became that person. You're not a millionaire like a lot of your classmates, but actually, you're sort of the richest man I know.
Yeah.
It's sort of a George Bailey story from What It's Wonderful Life.
Yeah.
That's Potter was not the rich guy.
Yeah.
George Bailey was the rich man.
Yeah.
And I've seen that lived out, not in a movie, but in real life.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree very wholeheartedly. So I remember growing up without much money, but by the time I was a teenager, things felt a little more comfortable. It felt a little less pressed. So I remember it's on my website's bio. I remember like my birthday dinner was McDonald's, and that felt like, well, like sweet, we're going to McDonald's. And then when I was a teenager, we were going to Outback Steakhouse, which at the time felt huge. Like, oh man, I'm fancy. I'm going to a steakhouse. It's Outback. But at the time, it felt very big. And I remember, again, we went on a trip to Disney when I was a teenager. So things got a little bit better for me around, I guess, my early teenage years. So I remember growing up, it was tight. Then it got better. What are some of the factors that led to things being more financially comfortable, where you don't feel as much pressure daily and you can start to afford to some of those lifestyle things?
Well, I think my income did increase. And nobody gets rich in ministry, but it did increase. And my expenses went down. I had less kids.
Yeah.
So expenses went down and income went up.
Yeah, he didn't have less kids because anything bad happened.
No.
They got married and moved out.
They all just moved out.
Yeah.
And there's never a time I don't pay bills in a month when I open my checkbook and I look and I'm like, I can pay every bill and not worry. And so while I'm grateful for those 15 years, I think there's so much I learned of value. I saw God's faithfulness beyond measure. But on the backside, I'm glad I'm not living under that financial pressure. It's nice to say I can just do.
Yeah.
So for our kids, it was one bag of chips. For our grandchildren, it's whatever bag you
Oh,
want.
it's whatever they
It's
want, whenever
like
they want.
get whatever they want. Like
Yeah.
to the grandkids, it's a blank check. For my kids, it was a nickel.
Oh yeah. No, I remember. I still feel bitter. Like
Yes.
we growing up, the ice cream truck. I could never get the ice cream truck. Ice cream truck, forget about it. That is for the rich kids. You cannot get the ice cream truck. The grandkids.
Yeah.
The ice cream truck comes around. There's like a dozen of the grandkids over, and they all run out. Pop pop. That's what he does.
That's what pop-ups do.
That's what pop ups do. That's their phrase. He gets his ice cream, and me and my siblings all cross our arms.
Yeah.
Like, where's that for us?
Yeah. So it isn't.
Yeah.
It is. I'm grateful we have more. Like we can pay for our family vacations. We get to do that now, and so we really do have I mean, I view it as an abundance.
Yeah.
We're not super rich, but there's just an abundance. So I'm grateful for that, but I'm glad I'm not living in those years either.
For sure.
I'm grateful for these years.
Yeah. And I definitely think so. Also, when you built your habits and when you started to make a little more money and your expenses went down, it's about you made more money. It wasn't exponentially more. You didn't double your salary. You didn't, you probably went up slowly in increments as a normal career path does. It seems to me like you also avoided lifestyle creep because a lot of people, the money comes and then suddenly there's more nights out, a nicer car, a nicer this. You kind of stayed grounded with like, okay, the money's here, the expenses are down. We're not going to expand immediately to fit this.
No.
Where we're still tight. Like you kind of enjoyed like, okay, we don't have to be tight anymore because we can actually save.
Right.
And then that does lead to now that we've saved, we can enjoy a little bit more.
Yeah, I think you're right, Steve. I think the thought of still living simply, we don't live to our means, which is one of the problems people have.
Mhm.
They live to their means.
Yeah.
And we couldn't do that. I think that trained us not to do that.
Yeah.
And so we did. Car I drive is 10 years old now.
Mhm.
And we're in the same house. And so we haven't let it just grow, our, and where I do invest more money is more of an experiences, like doing things with the grandkids or taking a family vacation or, hiking trips. And even some of the things we still do, like one of my big things, my luxury is hiking. Well, I play for a plane, but often that's points.
Yeah.
So I'm really flying for free, and then you're camping out in the mountains, so that's not costing you anything either.
No, not at all. That's not $300. I've gone on some of those trips with you, and trust me, some of the hotels I've stayed in my life are a little bit nicer sleeping conditions than on the trail.
Yeah,
I love those trips, but it's definitely not like a hotel.
No.
So now that you're able to look back on those years, and I suppose you've kind of answered this. What are some insights you have? I mean, what I'm kind of picking up on is those habits that you built, over 15 years. That's what really trained you of this is the lifestyle that we live.
Right.
That's kind of what you stay consistent in. Will you have any other insights looking back on that era of financial stress?
Probably two things. One is still, and for me, and I know maybe all your listeners aren't the same, I've seen God's faithfulness and I trust it. I saw it actually in my family. My dad lost his job a number of times. So he wasn't making a lot of money, and then he lost his job. And yet we stayed in the Christian school. And that was a major expense to the family. So I've seen God be so faithful. I'm 67 for really 67 years and provide in ways that are just untraceable. And I mean that sincerely. I probably have more stories than we would have time for.
Sure.
So I think seeing God's faithfulness and God's provision when I couldn't afford, and then living your priorities. I talk to people all the time. What are your priorities? So my priorities are going to be God first. So we're going to give first, and then my priorities are to my family. Yeah. And so it's like, well, if I live out my priorities and do that faithfully, I think God does take care of the rest. Sure. So now I've saved for retirement, but I don't live with with trying to live an opulent life, because in retirement, it's not my time. Yeah. It's really your time. We want to live, and this is what Kim's mom's parents have done. They've sort of seen the next generation is doing the important work. How do they support it? Well, we're trying to emulate the same thing. So that's a priority to me now.
Yeah.
Priority to me now is still how do we support our children, and then how do we encourage and support our grandchildren and our children in parenting our grandchildren.
Right.
So it's God and family, and mom.
Yeah.
Those are my priorities, and I want my finances to follow those priorities.
And you would say, so the God has the provision part for it, but there's still practical wisdom that needs to be applied.
Yep.
You don't, okay, so God provided XYZ thing.
Yep.
You didn't take God's provision and go, okay, cool, now let me go take my kids to an Eagles game to spend it on one experience.
Right.
It's like, no, God provided this, so now we can fix our dryer or something like that.
Yeah.
So there's still practical wisdom.
Yeah. I'm still trying to rigorously save.
Yeah.
But I'm doing that with an eye not for my comforts and to sort of go spend my child's inheritance.
Yeah.
I'm doing that to how can we be a resource when we need to be a resource.
Yeah.
So I'm, rigorously trying to save.
Yeah.
But it's still with priorities in view.
Yeah.
And the priority is not my opulence. My priority is service.
Yeah. Yeah. I think. I mean, I know I could speak for my siblings that we all feel that. On your priorities again, we talked about. It's not been getting the fanciest car. You're not driving a Tesla, brand new Tesla, or any other fancy car. Like you drive. I mean, I know it's a decent car.
Yeah.
But before this one that you got 10 years ago, I remember what you were driving.
Yeah. They were barely cars.
Yeah. So you've never cared about the flashy things or the big lifestyle things. You've cared about my family first, and putting them first, and being responsible. Like, okay, we're not going to take out a loan to take everyone out for a fancy steak dinner and spend $700 on dinner that we can't afford. It's guys, we're gathering around and eating Little Caesars. That's all that we can afford, and that's all we can do. And you know what? I think that was the best taste in Little Caesars we ever had.
Yep.
So when you think about finances now, right, as opposed to back then, and you've kind of touched on this already, what are your thoughts like, and what are like the matters that you give thought to? Because your financial life now is obviously very different. So what kind of occupies your mind now when you think about finances?
That's a great question. I've answered some of it. I think one would be, I do want to make sure mom's provided for. So you never know you don't know when your life's going to end. You don't know. Some people see it coming, and sometimes it's sudden. So I wouldn't want to put the family in difficulty if all of a sudden she couldn't be provided for. So I do think about, will she be provided for, and can she live her priorities in the way she wants to, would want to live.
Yeah, I mean, we would all take care of
her. And I know that too, and that's why I don't live with. I do live with. I might have so much, but it might not be enough. I might have this much, but it may not be enough. And I think God would show her faithfulness there. And I know
you have 5 kids who love you.
Would take care of her. So that idea of community, which is part of being wealthy, is community.
Yeah.
I just have a wonderful community with my family. Like, I appreciate what you've said about me. I love you, and I think about how you would care for me and how you would care for mom. So I'm not trying to get this place where it's so secure that I have no worries, because I'm not sure that's not my goal to get there. But I want to be wise. So that's how I think about it. I think it's what I said is, what are my priorities? Let's do that. So savings a more of a priority. I try to still want to be generous to others and more cheap with myself. So I want to think that way. Generous to others, or a little bit more restricted to yourself. So I don't spend a lot of money on myself. And actually, it was mom that encouraged me, like, buy better hiking equipment, because good hiking equipment is expensive. But it's it's a $300 backpack. So
well, again, the hotel is $300 a night, so you're still buying it once. You're still saving money on versus other types of vacations you could be taking. So obviously 2026, it's a very difficult time. I think you could argue it's one of the hardest economies we've had in the last 100 years of our nation's history. You could argue that. Obviously, inflation is very high, cost of living is very high. In general, wages have not kept up with that. The housing market's out of control. Even we talked about student loans earlier. Student loans are much more expensive now than they were in your era. So obviously things were tough for you, but there were ways where the hands you were dealt is a little bit different than the hand someone is dealt now.
Yeah, especially in housing.
Especially on the housing.
Right.
So with those things in mind, pretend, what is some advice you would have to a young family that may be financially stressed, kind of how you were, but playing by 2026 rules. So the you version, if you were in 2026,
Right.
what is some of the advice that you would have for that?
I think there's some financial advice that it's stood the test of time, and for some people, it's an expense issue. You still have to limit your expenses. Sometimes I've done some counseling, and I've done financial counseling over the last 35 years. Sometimes it's clearly an income problem.
Mm-hmm.
Like you got to get a different job because you can't live on that.
Mm-hmm.
I would say 90% of the time, it's actually more of an expense issue.
Mm-hmm.
And people aren't used to, they're just used to being generous to themselves. And so there's just a lot of things like, well, you don't need that. And if you can save early, and particularly for young people, if you can save early, you get ahead of the curve, the wave.
Yeah.
If the wave goes over you, you are behind it, and that's hard. Then you really have to get to more austere expense issues and more aggressive income issues. So I would say for young couples, when we do premarital counseling, we always try to tell people, try to live on your husband's salary for the first couple of years and save your wife's salary for the first couple of years. If you do that, you're going to get ahead. If you end up spending both salaries, you've now learned to live to your means.
Mm-hmm.
You have to live below your means.
Yeah.
Early in life.
Sure.
You have to live below your means. And I think that sets up for a longer term positive outlook.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think a challenge someone could issue for that is the economy is fundamentally different. You know, in your time it was more of a one income economy, whereas today
it's changed it to two income in my time. So it was changing to two income. Probably the 60s, 50s, 60s, maybe early 70s, it was a one income. But from the 70s on, it's been a two income economy.
Yeah.
And that's what made it hard for us because we were a one income economy with everybody else. Everybody in our neighborhood everybody had it. Both the husband and wife had a job.
Yeah.
I think I think college is exponentially more expensive, healthcare more expensive, and housing. I think those are broken systems in a sense.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it's harder for your generation. It wasn't that way.
Yeah.
Now interest rates when I went for mortgage rate were 13%. So
Right. Yeah. It's not. It wasn't the easiest back then, but it's definitely really, really hard now.
I think so.
I think, if I were to understand you, you would still say take care of your family first and prioritize your family. Kind of live onto principles and your values, and kind of let that guide your finances.
Right. And try to live below your means.
Yeah.
A lot of the problem, it's consumer spending because there's no return. It's not capital spending. Like a house, there's a return to. It's people, sometimes it is simply, I've seen budgets where well, we have $300 a month to eat out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, wow, I had 30.
Right.
And you don't need that. You don't want to take away enjoyment. Like people do need enjoyment times.
Yeah.
But it's how do you value that? And what does that mean for maybe just 2 to 3 years?
Yeah.
That's it's that discretionary spending on consumer goods that can be. Yeah. So that's the debt trap.
So you would, if there was a Warren, your name is Warren, but I'm calling him Dad, his name's Warren. If there was a Warren equivalent living in 2026 under the pressure, you would, I guess one of the first things you would look at is the eat out budget, because food is obviously super expensive. Yeah. So you would say, can we dial that down, eat more home cooked meals? Groceries may be expensive, but they're still cheaper.
Much cheaper.
And then just other discretionary spending things are the ways you can kind of move your priorities where it's...
Toys are expensive.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, but you can get hand-me-downs. Just try to find cheap alternatives.
Well, I mean, adult,
you mean adult toys, special car, new phone.
Yeah, you go to watches, you go to... people ask me, I think my first pair of sunglasses that were expensive were $89.
Yeah.
And they were prescription sunglasses.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, I just spent a ton of money because I was buying $10 sunglasses.
Yeah.
Well, I know there's $1,000 sunglasses.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think you want to be careful if I'm spending $1,000 on sunglasses, which I'm not saying you can't do.
Yeah.
That might affect your budget.
Right.
If
right.
if your budget's tight, that's probably not where to invest your money.
Yeah. Yeah. Most definitely.
Yeah.
If your budget's tight,
Yeah.
$1,000
Yeah.
sunglasses
Yeah.
may be on the chopping board.
Now we know someone who owns a sunglasses store, so we shouldn't say.
Yeah. No, shout out to our friends.
Yeah.
Definitely. No, you can always support sunglasses. So yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Dad. It's been a joy having you here. I really love you, even if your basketball takes out of pocket.
Wisdom, and experience. Wisdom and experience.
Oh my goodness. All right. Well, all right. That's it. That's today's episode. Thank you for listening.